develops across the UK. Large parts of the Midlands are under floodwater too, after the Kyre Brook in Tenbury Wells rose and caused a wall to collapse, flooding the Worcestershire town. Yellow warnings for wind and rain are in place for western parts of Scotland and Wales, South East England and Northern Ireland. Elsewhere, Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall says NATO countries are involved in a hidden cyber war with Russia. That comes as the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster will warn that Russia could turn the lights off and won't think twice about exploiting defence gaps in the UK. Pat McFadden is expected to give the warning to NATO members next week. In a speech, he'll urge countries to bolster cybersecurity and not underestimate the threat of cyber warfare from Russia. It follows warnings from experts last night who urged Britain to remain firm and stand strong against Vladimir Putin's threats. Shadow Levelling Up Secretary Kevin Hollinrake told GBNews Labour need to increase the UK's defence spending now.
One of the highest spenders in NATO, constantly have been, but we recognise there are growing threats around the world, and that's why we committed to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2030. And that is a commitment not matched by the Labour government. They've made some kind of general commitment to get there at some point in the future, but the threat is now, and we should bolster our defences now. We made that firm commitment. Labour should do the same.
The Justice Secretary says the state should never offer death as a service. Shabana Mahmood made the comments in a strongly worded intervention over the assisted dying bill ahead of a historic Commons vote next week. In a letter to constituents, Ms Mahmood said she was profoundly concerned by the legislation, not just for religious reasons, but because it could create a slippery slope towards death on demand. She's previously made clear she would vote against the bill alongside Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who faced backlash after suggesting the changes would cost the NHS more. A group of faith leaders have signed a letter opposing the bill ahead of its debate by MPs, and Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has declined to say whether he will back the bill, arguing that he doesn't want to pressure MPs. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for Free Speech Nation.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
A British institute is butchered and given a woke rebrand. Segregation returns to universities. And a woman is branded a Nazi for saying men shouldn't be in a breastfeeding group. This is Free Speech Nation. Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. This is a show where we take a look at culture, current affairs and politics and their impact on our modern liberal democracy, which according to some is enough to make us far-right bigots. Still, we persevere. So, coming up on tonight's show, the non-crime hate incident insanity continues as dirty pants on a washing line have been the most recent target. We also have Stephen O'Grady from the Free Speech Union to give us the latest on the Alison Pearson case. The High Court will decide what a woman is. I'll be talking to a criminal defence lawyer about the ramifications of that ruling. We'll also be talking about a university that's holding segregated swimming classes, as well as that Jaguar ad that has caused quite a stir. And of course, myself and my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our wonderful studio audience. My comedian guests this evening are the wonderful Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. There they are. How are you doing, Lewis? You all right?
You didn't call me wonderful. You called him wonderful.
It was a suffix for both names.
No, the people know. They know.
And the wonderful Lewis Schaefer. OK, There we go. How you doing, Paul? You all right?
OK, it's my birthday this week.
Hey, happy birthday. Hey,
45.
Anton cares.
Yeah, Anton cares. Just the oldest I've ever been, actually. 45.
Wow. Do you remember, Lewis? Do you remember 45?
Too old for me.
We're not dating.
I know his girlfriend, and that is very much true. OK, then, we're going to start with some questions from the audience. Our first question is from John.
Good evening. Good evening. My question is about the term you mentioned in your opening speech, non-crime hate incidents.
Yes.
Should squabbles between neighbours and school children even be classed as non-crime hate incidents?
Yes, here we go. So North Wales police recorded a soiled pair of underwear hung on a washing line as a non-crime hate incident. It's emerged this week. In September 2021, a woman with an Italian surname claimed her neighbour placed a very large pair of soiled briefs on their washing line after Italy defeated England on penalties in the European Championships final, yes. So the police are facing criticism as children as young as 9 are being investigated for name-calling. So what do you think? Are you wearing your underwear right now?
I can't tell the nation about that tonight. I think there's a real danger here of a sort of thought police and tracking our every move and every statement rather than chasing real crime. And I'm quite worried about it, really.
No, well, exactly. I mean, Paul, the more that this case has gone on with Alison Pierce, I mean, the thing is, the people, regular viewers of the show will know this has been going on for years.
Yeah.
It's now kind of reached a feverish point where these incidences are now being sort of publicised.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking when this gentleman here said, you know, it's starting to feel as if it's becoming a danger. It's been a danger for some time, and it's just creeping in. I think what's happened, particularly under Labour, is it's feeling like it's more acceptable to do so. The law's been there for some time. It was introduced under the Conservatives. But I think Starmer and Labour are emboldened by their huge majority, and the police will feel more comfortable to follow through on this. And can we blame the police? I mean, that's up for debate. They're just following the law. That's what they're doing. But at the end of the day, people pay a lot of money for soiled pants, Nick, and it just goes to prove that a hate incident, one person's hate incident is another person's kink or truth.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean?
Another person's Jaguar.
Exactly. So this is, and all joking aside, that's exactly what the point is. How can, it's so subjective, all of these, you know, when it comes to the trans issue, for instance, there will be people who firmly believe that a man can transition to a woman, and there will be people who firmly believe that cannot happen. And they should be views that can be held and debated day in, day out. They shouldn't be a matter for the police. You know, we shouldn't be policing tweets, we should be policing the streets. So I'm not sure how we ever overcome this, other than just to say, this is a nonsense, we need to forget it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Lewis, because Paul makes a point there. We shouldn't blame the police here, but should we blame the police? Because we've had 2 Home Secretaries who have actually said to the police quite clearly, stop doing what you're doing. And this case that we're talking about, the soiled pants, that's from 2021. So this has been going on for years. And now, of course, it's going to be arguably emboldened under a Labour government.
Well, I think only because it's called a hate incident. Well, what did it used to be called? It used to get an ASBO for something like that. It's just, nobody wants soiled underpants hanging from, you know, your neighbor's thing.
Speak for yourself.
Exactly. So what are you going to do? You're gonna call the police, and it's a question of how the police are gonna mark it. I think it's totally legitimate for the police to you say, you know what, my neighbor is just doing this deliberately just to get on my nerves. Who else is gonna deal with this? What, are you supposed to knock on the guy's door and he's gonna punch you in the face? I mean, we've all done horrible things to our neighbors, and our neighbors are doing horrible things to us. We need to call somebody when horrible things are done to us.
This just makes me happy that I live in a flat.
Yeah.
OK, our next question's from Catherine. Hey, Catherine.
Is it racist to offer swimming lessons to exclusively black students?
Yes, so it's been revealed this week that the University of Leicester are offering Unity swimming lessons exclusively to their black students in an attempt to teach life-saving skills in a safe, inclusive environment. Every Wednesday evening, the pool, sauna and steam room are reserved for these classes, in which access is only given to those from underrepresented communities. What do you think? Something seems wrong here. No, so I'm just...
Oh, you're not talking to me.
No, sorry.
All right, so sorry.
Well, I do swim. I mean, the last thing, you know, you got your hat on, your goggles, your head's in the water. I mean...
Do you think it makes a difference?
You're not thinking, are you?
Do you see why they might be doing this?
Not remotely. In fact, it's almost racist to segregate a certain group of people as if they're somehow needing special treatment.
Well,
I mean,
that's a very good point.
Why is that?
Lewis, in America, you would have pools reserved only times for only white people and black people. This is only half a decade ago, and now suddenly they're doing it the same.
You know what? I don't understand this racism thing. If black people don't want to hang out with white people, you just say, okay, you don't have to hang out with us. You can't force people to like each other. You know, I'm looking at you guys. I don't like you, and I definitely don't like Josh. You know what I mean? You can't say, oh, you've got to like Josh. If you don't like Josh, you can't be. You know what I'm saying?
How are you turning this up to me? What have I done? I've done nothing.
Because it's all about you, Josh, and that's your problem. But that's what this is. This is, you know what?
I know how to swim.
And if it makes it's easier to learn how to swim for some groups of people. Let them do it, and they'll wake up one day and say, you know what, I missed out swimming with Louis Schaefer because I was put in this black unity category, and I don't like that. Well, they might think, thank God I was saved from swimming with Louis.
I reckon no one has ever had that thought.
Yeah.
Imagine waking up in the morning and thinking, do you know what? I have really missed out on the opportunity to swim with Louis Schaefer. Look, that sounds like a non-crime hate incident.
The comments we get after the show when Louis is on, that's exactly the kind of people who would want to swim with Louis.
Yeah, there'll be people that are complaining.
You know what? Everybody thinks that when they first meet me. They think maybe I'm too much, or they maybe
I'd like to drown this guy. Yeah.
And then they think, oh, he's not that bad.
Yeah.
And
Paul, the point of the university is that 95% of people of colour or black people, whatever you want to call it, can swim. And this is an initiative to help more black people to swim. The initiative might be a good idea, but of course this is exactly the kind of thing that we've seen over the last decade or so, where something with a good intention actually turns out to be worse.
Yeah, and I think the whole idea of this sort of woke ideology empowers people to believe that they're doing good, to save in some way. The first question I would ask is, who has asked for this? Is there a group of black people at Leicester University saying, please, can we swim on our own? I very much doubt it. Also, if you read the full poster, it says that people that haven't had access to swimming or sports. I can only assume that the people that wrote that poster haven't watched the Olympics, because the black people do really, really well at sports. They certainly haven't watched the 100 metres. So I would question the whole thing. I think that it's, you know, perhaps that they do have good intentions, but once again, they feel empowered. They feel like it's social justice that's unrequired. I don't think that there are. Is there a universal issue with the safety of black people in the water? I don't know if there is. I understand that, you know, anecdotally, black people don't swim as much as white people. I've no idea whether that's true or not. And I'm not sure what the University of Leicester are really trying to fix here. It feels like a non-problem hate incident.
Well, also, there's nothing wrong with just encouraging more black people to swim, but to do it as a contained group to the exclusion of other groups, that seems wrong. Just more people need to swim. Anyway, our third question for the moment is from Anton. Hey, Anton.
Is it okay for politicians to refer as other groups as terrorists or other things?
Yes. So this is because I believe this is the Scottish Green Party. They have been accused of expelling a councillor, or they have expelled a councillor, because he argued that Hamas and Hezbollah should be classified as terrorist groups, as they are by the UK government. This is John Ross Scott, also said that Israel is the only true democratic state in the Middle East and should have the right to defend its boundaries. He's appealing the expulsion. Now, Anton, what do you think about this?
I don't think it's right to call a certain group... I don't think it's right for a certain group to be singled out.
OK, well, yes, I mean, but the certain group, Paul, is
a terrorist group.
A terrorist group. So calling a terrorist is, how is that wrong?
The problem we got here is this is the Green Party, and particularly in Scotland, they've got form. So it was less than a year ago. I think her name was Chapman. Forget her surname, Lisa Chapman, something like that. Green Party, Scottish Member of Parliament, who essentially blamed the Israelis for October the 7th. Very clumsy, bordering on disgusting tweet, and now just a matter of months later, we've got the Green Party essentially prosecuting a member for calling out Hamas for being a terrorist group. I don't know quite what to say about it. They seem to have abandoned all climate and green issues and become this kind of activist group for any woke or ideological left-leaning thing.
But how damning is it for the idea of something being woke that you can't call terrorists, right, Lewis?
No, it's the other way around. Let people call everybody what they want to call, and let the Green Party decide who wants to be in the Green Party. The Green Party is not a governmental organization yet, and so why can't
they were part of the SNP,
whatever,
part of the Scottish government.
They're not. It's not set out by the government. There's no in the Constitution.
They were literally the government, though.
It doesn't matter. They're not. It's not in the Constitution of Britain. There's no Constitution.
I guess the thing is, well, no, I mean, the point maybe you're trying to make, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
How about letting me...
is that if you want to think that Hamas aren't terrorists, then join the Scottish Green Party.
Yes.
Okay,
That's. I'm going to go one step beyond that. This is I'm a free speech absolutist. If the Green Party doesn't want to have anybody who thinks that Hamas is a terrorist organization in their party, they should be allowed to. have that in. But we also should be allowed to be informed that Green Party people do not. So when you vote Green, you're voting for the destruction of the state of Israel.
I also think what's important about this debate is that there are many people on the opposite side of this, even much further beyond Lewis, that thoroughly believe what the Green Party are saying. And I think it's something we should all be aware of. You know, that's why we need free speech. We need to identify these people.
So we're gonna force the Green Party to accept somebody into this.
So now we know that they're morally disgusting. Right, our final questions from Simone.
Is the past being whitewashed?
OK, yes, so this is Steve McQueen's new film, Blitz, which tells the story of a 9-year-old who was evacuated to the countryside during World War II. It's sparked outrage online as the poster shows the cast of 2 black actors in lead roles. Now, some online have defended the casting choices, saying it could have been historically accurate, but many have argued it's an example of whitewashing the past. So, have you seen this poster?
No, I haven't actually, but I must say, slightly deviating, I've been watching a couple of old films recently, the film club, and they are so easy to watch, and there isn't anything of the colour thing or anything. They're just easy to watch.
I guess, are you sort of saying that it's because nothing takes you out of the historical context by having somebody coming in who mostly unlikely would have been there at the time?
Maybe.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's an interesting point. Paul, there was, as has been pointed out now, there was a real. This is based on a real person who was part of World War II in the UK. So that story is real. There were black people in this country at the time. Other people have said, well, why not do a story about the 180,000 women who are doing a similar role that haven't been covered in the past?
Yeah, I don't have any major issue with it. They're essentially the 2 black characters that are in the film are on the cover of the film, so there are only really 2 black characters in it. I think what's really important to bear in mind is World War II is very recent history. It's 80 years ago or less in some instances, and there are a lot of people alive or related to people that fought in that war that are very precious about the fact that we won that war and we stopped tyranny and we stopped fascism and we stopped the Nazis. And that was done by a lot of people, particularly this country, would believe that was done by white British people because that was the majority colour at the time.
That was arguably the majority colour in London. I mean, that war was fought by different ethnicities all over the world, part of what was the British Empire at the time, Lewis. Do you have any issue with telling a story about these particular individuals?
You know what? It's not the kind of thing that I want to see. These people haven't seen the movie, because if they saw the movie, they would know that I'm in a very big scene in the movie. Which you didn't even mention it. Yes, I'm in a very big scene.
Sorry.
Are you in the racist bit?
I'm in the Actually, in a way, yeah, I placed. I'm not going to say what role I was playing, but I was there. You didn't see it.
You didn't black out for it, did you?
Did you see the? Did you?
I've not seen the film.
No. Now I'm definitely not going to watch it.
I mean, the point is, let people make films the way they, you know what I mean? It's like the swimming thing. If you
let the audience decide.
Let the audience decide. We're in favour of free speech.
Right, good. Well, next on Free Speech Nation, Boris Johnson called it an appalling attack on free speech. We'll get the latest as Essex police drop their investigation into journalist Alison Pearson, plus plenty more. See you in 2.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
On the 8th of October at Battersea Arts Centre, a new orchestra launched its inaugural season. The orchestra, which is named Chromatica, is formed of some of the best young musicians in Britain. They're due to perform in traditional venues and in community spaces. The aim is to bring their youth and dynamism to a wide repertoire of music. Predominantly, they'll work with emerging conductors who will have the chance to shape the orchestra and its repertoire. To share her experiences of bringing the ensemble together, I'm joined by the violinist and Chromatica Orchestra lead, Maren Bosma. To what extent is this novel? To what extent is this new ground?
Well, new ground, it is new ground in a sense that this is a completely new orchestra. Obviously, in the current sort of cultural climate, it's not really easy to set up a new orchestra. And so in that sense, it's a novelty for us to kind of try and carve out our space in the current climate of musical orchestras and musicians in Britain.
Yes, I mean, it's quite odd in a way to think of a new orchestra because the ones that we have tend to be struggling and numbers indeed have been reduced. I used to be associated with an orchestra which unfortunately went under. You've got some private backing for this.
Yeah.
Why do you think the private backers have been willing to give you support? What is it that they see as your unique selling proposition?
Well, Chromatica Orchestra essentially is an early career orchestra. So we're formed of all sort of top musicians who've graduated in, say, the last sort of 5 to 10 years. Because everyone is of that generation, there is a sort of enthusiasm and dynamism that we bring to the stage, I think is quite unique. The orchestra's mission, it's really focused on creating opportunities for young emerging musicians.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Essex Police has dropped its investigation into Telegraph journalist Alison Pearson for allegedly stirring up racial hatred with a social media post last November. Officers called at her home on Remembrance Sunday but refused to tell her any details about which post was being investigated or who made the complaint against her. Essex Police have said that they investigate all crimes without fear or favour, but many criticise the inquiry, labelling it an appalling attack on free speech. Now, I am joined by legal officer at Free Speech Union, Stephen O'Grady. So let's have a little applause for Stephen, who's come out here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Stephen, have you had any direct involvement in this case? I know that Free Speech Union has been involved.
No, I've not personally been involved. As the Free Speech Union, what we did was arrange proper legal representation for Alison with a top-notch criminal lawyer at the firm Murray & Human, who engaged with the police on her behalf.
And could you just sum up the case a little bit for anybody who's actually tuning into this first time?
Well, it was, I believe, Remembrance Sunday, early in the morning, and the police came and knocked on her door and told her that they were investigating an incident, and there seems to be some ambiguity over exactly what was said and the impression that she came away with versus the impression the police believed they were giving to her. They told her that it was to do with stirring up racial hatred. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, they said that they would invite her to the police station for an interview where she could account for herself. Until then, she had no idea specifically what she was accused of, as you say, which could, to be fair, that could be a procedural matter that the police wouldn't want to tip their hand beforehand and put allegations to somebody before they've had the opportunity to take legal advice and be represented. In the event, it seems that the police passed the case on to the Crown Prosecution Service, who looked at it on the papers and said that there's no prospect of a prosecution happening here and advised them to drop the case, which they have done.
So this part of it is now over, but then this has also, of course, highlighted many similar instances from people with less profile.
Absolutely. Alison benefits from a large public profile, and she's managed to get a lot of traction for her case. But it does bring to the fore, I think, two things. The one is the tactics that the police use in having a look at online speech and what people say. And if it departs from certain narrow establishment views, they are more likely to get that knock on the door in the morning. The implicit menace that comes with that if you don't engage with them, then there is the threat that they could be back in a couple of days with a warrant, come and seize your computers, take all your devices, and it turns into a much bigger investigation. So you're more or less obliged to go along with it and to see what it is they have to say. And then there is this wider regime, which you touched on earlier, of the non-crime hate incidents, where even things which fall well below the criminal threshold, the police nonetheless investigate and record, and that can be stored on a database against somebody's name in some circumstances. Any one of us in this room could have such an incident recorded against us, and it may even only turn up on an enhanced DBS check, where somebody applies for a job and it turns out that they've been accused of some hate incident, and obviously no employer is going to look at that and say, I tell you what, I'm going to employ this person.
I mean, can you tell us why these are set up in the first place? Because it seems like an incredible waste of police time, but was there at least originally a good intention for it?
Well, potentially a good intention. It's never been a formal decision line in the sand that we can say this is the day that the police started recording it. It goes back to the Macpherson inquiry into the Stephen Lawrence murder, and the recommendation in the report of Lord Macpherson there that the police should record incidents based on the perception of the alleged victim. So it doesn't matter whether there's any evidence that hate is underpinning a particular incident. It doesn't matter if the incident crosses the criminal threshold. There merely needs to be a perception that it is underpinned by hate. Over time, that's evolved into this regime. It's got its own name, non-crime hate incidents. Things came to a head a few years ago with Harry Miller, who posted a rude poem on Twitter, as it then was, and he had a non-crime hate incident recorded against him. He challenged it and took the case all the way to the Court of Appeal, where there was an absolutely thumping judgment from the court there, which ruled that these non-crime hate incidents could transgress basic civil liberties, the right to freedom of speech, and compared the actions of the police to the Gestapo or the Stasi, saying that we've never had a secret police in this country, and really, storing a database of people's political opinions or off-colour jokes amounts to pretty much the actions of a secret police.
Well, it's not just the secret police. I mean, they say, offences taken, not given. So, of course, something like this is open to being used by bad faith actors who are, activists who will say, if you say that there are only two biological sexes, they will use that against you, make a complaint, pretend offence, or whether it's real or not, and then get the police, and the police are going out there doing their dirty work, right?
Absolutely. It's wide open to abuse for the police to be used essentially as the armed wing of whatever political movement it is that chooses to do this, or even something as trivial and ridiculous as the underpants story that we saw the other day. But in response to that, and just how tenuous some of these things were, the Home Secretary a couple of years ago issued statutory guidance saying that these incidents should only be recorded if there is a significant risk of harm or it being escalated to an actual crime. Since then, however, we've seen an increase in the number of incidents recorded by some constabularies. It's not consistent the way in which they approach it, and it's clear that the current regime simply isn't working as it was meant to.
So do you think there's any truth that it's because it's an easy crime or non-crime? It's easier to solve a non-crime than an actual crime. Is that partly why it is? Is this why the police seem so determined to push these through? Because it is easier for them to rock up at Alison Pearson's door replying to a tweet than actually doing some investigation into real crimes.
Absolutely, and I think as well it gives them a very clear mechanism. They can say that hate crime has increased by whatever % this year. There'll be a lot of pressure, political pressure and pressure from senior leadership to be seen to be doing something about hate crime, and it turns into a self-perpetuating narrative, really, where things that are not at all, they're not crimes and they're probably not underpinned by hate, again, looking at the underpants story, will be logged as a hate crime. That will feed this perception of an increase, and there'll be more pressure on the police in order to do something. So it just feeds into itself.
So what about actual hate incidents? Because the criticism of the police seems to be that there's this idea of two-tiered policing, in that you have this kind of non-crime incident being investigated, whereas actual crimes, and we saw an imam, the footage recently, and that was decided wasn't calling for the destruction of Jewish homes, yet somehow that's not a crime, and that wasn't taken forward.
Yes, it's actually interesting to see just how fulsomely Essex police came out in defence of the imam's free speech rights. And I personally would not seek to denigrate from that. I think if he has these views, let him promulgate them as long as they are within the constraints of the law. But there does seem to be this perception here. It may be that because some people make easier targets than others, it may be because the level of political pressure is such so as to clamp down on certain ideas and not others. But this rarely just shows the problem with the inconsistency of this entire programme, where there isn't a clear set of standards by which we can judge police actions in this respect, and nothing really to hold them to account short of judicial review.
Well, see, it's interesting that you said that you think that you wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that if it didn't break the law. To my mind, that is an incitement to violence. So surely that would be something that should be investigated or taken to the CPS. In terms of calling for the destruction of Jewish homes...
As with any of these things, there'll be contacts there. I'm not going to sit on the programme and accuse the imam of stirring up racial hatred or inciting violence, but
I'm happy to do it.
We can form our own views. We can form our own views. He had some rather ripe opinions about gay people as well, which he was not shy in sharing. So there are certainly circumstances in which violence is incited, but the police seem to be willing to take action far, far below that line in a lot of cases.
One more question, sorry, very quickly, Stephen, though. Let's quickly talk about Labour, because it seems like they're now doubling down.
Yes, curiously, after all of this fuss over Alison Pearson, the reports in the Times of some of the sillier incidents that have been recorded, Yvette Cooper has decided that she is going to double down on this and re-evaluate the guidance, possibly retract it for the recording of these incidents. She says she's concerned about anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. How she has come to that determination, who knows, because there's never been any solid piece of analysis that's been done based on the recording of these incidents. There's never been, to my knowledge, even a single crime which has been prevented by recording them, or any meaningful operational police decision made on that basis. But she has determined that at present, the guidance is prohibiting the police from recording them and is looking at liberalising it.
Unfortunately, the story continues. OK, well, this is a legal officer from the Free Speech Union. Please do support it. Stephen O'Grady, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, next... Oh, no, stay here, Stephen. I want to talk to you more. We've got a whole break to go. Next on Free Speech Nation, the managing director of Jaguar has defended a dramatic rebrand, saying critics like Nigel Farage are not important as they seek a completely different audience. What is that supposed to mean? We'll try and find out. See you in a few minutes. Now you can...
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Storm Bert just slowly starting to edge away, so we've still got an evening of strong winds across the UK, further rain in places too, and it remains blustery on Monday as well. And we can see Bert there just anchored to the north of the UK, slowly pushing its way eastwards, so staying windy for the next 24 hours or so, but it does eventually calm down. We do have heavy rain across parts of England and Wales pushing its way southeastwards, blustery showers following, strong winds across Northern Ireland, Scotland, 60, 70 miles an hour possible, so there could be some disruption over the coming night as well. Temperatures under clearer spells dipping into single figures, so a fresher start to Monday for many. Early rain across the southeast starting to clear, but it's an unsettled start across parts of Scotland first thing. Outbreaks of heavy rain in places, strong winds as well, gusts of 40, 50 miles an hour, but only slowly pushes away. Northern Ireland also seeing frequent heavy showers, something a little drier and brighter for northern England, parts of Wales, the Midlands, but blustery showers pushing in from the west. Rain soon clearing southeast England, but remaining quite cloudy here with some patchy, showery rain in places. And through the day, it's a day of sunny spells and showers for many, though showers frequent across the north of the UK, particularly Scotland, where we'll see some longer spells of rain, the rain turning to snow over the higher ground as some colder air moves in here too. So an unsettled, blustery day to come for many. Temperatures are lower compared to Sunday, generally 7 to 11 Celsius, so actually around average for the time of year. For Tuesday morning, the risk of some showers after an early frost in places, and generally a drier, brighter day with lighter winds for many, but still windy across northeast Scotland into the afternoon. Perhaps some rain approaching the far southwest later on in the day. Temperatures near average, feeling a little cooler towards the middle of the week, and generally remaining a little unsettled.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Later in the show, I'll be turning agony uncle with the help of my panel, Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer, to help you deal with your unfiltered dilemmas. Message us at gbnews.com, yoursay/yoursay, and we will help you deal with your issues. The managing director of Jaguar has defended the legendary British car company's dramatic rebrand this week after critics labelled the new TV advert woke, pointing out it doesn't actually feature any cars. Around 800 people are reported to have worked on the rebrand, which replaced the classic Leaper cat logo. Jaguar boss Rowden Glover suggested critics like Nigel Farage are not important to the company's vision, saying they want to pursue a completely different audience to its traditional customers. I guess androgynous people who dress like they're in a Luc Besson movie. I am now joined by Professor of Management and Marketing at London Business School, Patrick Barwise. Patrick, thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the show. So, obviously, you've seen this advert.
I have.
Has it all kicked off? Did you get messages from your friends going, what's going on here? This is crazy.
Well, no, I've more picked it up from the media. I personally hated it, but that isn't the point.
Well, it's playing now, so yes. Yeah, we can see it there. So, I mean, the first thing is there's nothing there that screams car.
Yes.
And there's nothing there that says Jaguar.
That's right.
Particularly. So it's a complete rebrand.
Yes.
What do you think about, like, just tearing up their original icon? I mean, it takes decades, centuries sometimes, to build up these iconic...
It's many decades. It's almost a century.
Yeah.
Actually, they rebranded in 1945 because they were originally called SS cars. And in 1945, that was not, a great brand name.
Yeah.
So they called it Jaguar. The SS stood for Sports Saloon. And so the original idea, they were very good at making powerful engines. And when I was a kid, it was the great getaway vehicle that criminals used because it was faster than the police cars. So that heritage kind of continues. I think one of the things, Oscar Wilde said, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. And one thing you have to give credit to Jaguar for is they're getting an awful lot of coverage.
They are, but is it the coverage that they want?
Some of it is, most of it isn't. And the question is, how much do they care about the hostile reactions? And to what extent, with clearly this rebrand and this repositioning they're talking about, to what extent is part of the attraction for the new market they're targeting the fact that most viewers of GB News would disagree with would hate the advertising?
Yes. Is that what they're going for anti-GB News?
Not explicitly. But
I took it personally.
But you and many others.
No, but one of the things that they surely wouldn't have intended is to be mocked, which is what you've also had. We've got people out there. We can show one of the adverts now. Let's have the sound on this. Let's quickly see it. So, look, yes, they are being talked about, but they're being mocked. And, of course, that is from a seemingly quite a young, hip audience there, taking the mickey out of them. Some
of the audience they might be trying to reach towards. I mean, what I think, I wouldn't have done what they've done, let me say, OK? I mean, I'm a cautious academic. It seems to me what they're doing is very, very risky. The thing which I would criticise them for is that they didn't hold this campaign back until they're launching their new cars. They're doing an extraordinarily brave thing with the company, which is they're going all electric roughly by the end of next year.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a huge thing. I'm surprised they did this campaign now before they've got new products to talk about. And in general, when you do a rebrand, number one is it always gets mocked whenever you do a rebrand. And number two is if the rebrand is just words and pictures, you get a pushback, you achieve nothing. It has to be combined with something real which is happening, which in this case is actually true. So I'm puzzled that they did that extraordinary campaign, which, you know, I hated, and I'm not the most woke person in the world, okay? But they're getting this huge amount of coverage. And one thing about advertising is if nobody hates your commercial, it's not going to be very good.
Yeah.
Okay? That if nobody hates it, so if you remember, the future's bright, the future's orange, incredibly pretentious, huge pushback, very, very successful. Because people talk about you, you're getting lots of exposure. So that's actually working for them at this point. The question is, where does this then leave the brand when they launch the cars, you know, over the next 12, 24 months?
900 people working on the advert and on the campaign.
Yes.
The interesting thing is that for a rebrand, it just feels so dated. That's the element. And you mentioned this kind of anti-woke thing. It's almost like it's taking the mickey out of what we've seen over the last few years. And surely this is also something that we're going to see is some of these, you know, people who run these campaigns and create them, their mindset, because they're living in a bubble, their mindset is still very much sort of 2020, 21, thinking that's very cutting edge, and the boss is saying, oh no, yeah, we've got androgynous people, that's great, that's what we see. Of course, not realising that things have moved on. And you also mentioned anti-woke. We're just going to have a little look at Bud Light, which they went down that route, had a massive ramification. This is their new advert, if we're just going to have a look at that, and if you don't mind having a look at this.
It is not just a fragrance. It is a passion.
This is Parker Forsyth. Hey, I think I'm in the wrong commercial.
Wait, aren't you Andre?
No, I'm Shane.
Oh, you're supposed to be in a Bud Light commercial.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you're here, Andre is...
Something is different about you, man.
Yes, I mean, I think that was a big mistake by Bud. Having said that, that's a much more blue-collar brand. It's a very, I mean, you know, as portrayed here. So, and they were using a transgender model. Okay, so that was, to me, way over the top. I was astonished when I saw the Jaguar ad. As I say, I wouldn't have done it. It's certainly brave, as they say, but what they're trying to do is actually repositioning the whole company as an electric-only company, make the brand more global, particularly in Asia, okay, make it younger, actually push it to a higher price point than it has been. And I'm not saying they'll succeed, because it's certainly very risky, but the idea that, you know, people are sort of looking at it and, you know, Nigel Farage saying the company will go bust, you know, it is far too soon to see how this pans out.
I guess we have to see what the product is, but would you at least say that that style of advertising does feel dated now, that we are progressing?
Not especially to me, okay? Not especially, but I'm not one of the, you know, I'm not one of these people who, you know, lives in Soho and is sort of watching what's happening every week.
It's incredibly dated, I'm telling you.
Okay, well, that's your view.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Patrick Barwise, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Cheers.
Can I just add, I mean, they do need to work on reliability, and just as a parting shot, you know, the Americans say what you've got is this great British brand, that cars are very beautiful, and we forgive the fact they're not reliable. And if you think back to Mad Men, they had an episode where the Brit tried to commit suicide by connecting the tube, the exhaust pipe, and it wouldn't start, so he failed. So that's what the Americans...
I will say, Patrick, that I like your haircut very much. Right.
OK. It's very 2020.
I don't know why our guest is so desperate to get out of the chair. Right, next on Free Speech Nation. No, don't say that. How the BBC failed British comedy. We've got British comedy right here. Do we have long enough to get into that? Right, see you after the break.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year.
Woo!
Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
I know, it's a nice reminder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's last year been like for you?
Winning it was I was not expecting to win. At any point until they said my name.
You're a
so
very
it was a
humble
nice
guy.
surprise. No, I was just
really
in touch with reality. Yeah, no, I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that surely like an underdog.
Yeah, it did.
Actually, I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also like kind of simultaneously my confidence improved at the same time, and then that like little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength.
Cake.
I think cake, typically if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know.
I attribute it to my nan.
Sweet.
But yeah, I would say, I think most people probably attribute it to like a grandparent or something that they maybe done with like their parents when they was growing up. So I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody all over the place, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Has the BBC lost its touch? Well, according to the public spending watchdog, the broadcaster has not created a new TV hit for 5 years, highlighting its reliance on existing shows such as Strictly Come Dancing. Pressure grows on the BBC as it continues to miss new programme targets. This comes as revenue from the licence fee continues to dwindle. Now, I'd like to play you all a little comedy clip, not from the BBC.
Bit young, no?
Over 16.
That's not funny.
Mid-30s.
You're giving us a bad name.
Us? No. I'm not Muslim.
You're not a Muslim. She's not a schoolgirl. Maybe I don't work in a shop.
You've been at a fancy dress party.
You dressed as an imam as a joke.
No, I dressed as a vicar as a joke. That was forced awareness.
I'm calling the police. Don't want any grooming going on here.
No. I'll get him in. Hermione,
Okay,
Hermione, come. Look, see, dressed as a schoolgirl.
Okay, let me ask.
All right.
Miss, are you over 16?
Yeah, what are you, like 36, 37?
I'm 29, and I got ID'd last week.
29.
Thank you very much.
Allahu Akbar.
Okay, very funny. Get out.
Allahu Akbar.
Goodbye. Yes,
okay.
very funny.
So that's had 2.5 million views on TikTok now. I'm joined by its writer and director, Gary Senior.
Hi, Josh.
Gary.
Thank you.
So that is from Hapless, a TV show, which is 2 seasons that you have written, directed. You also, I'm in it as well. I think I have to say that for legal reasons as well.
Hardly recognisable.
Yeah, exactly. So,
can I just say one thing before you say the so? Can I say hello to Waleed Mahmoud?
Yes.
Who is a guy who, just like that clip, one of the millions who did, on, what's it called, TikTok. And I said I'd say hello to him because he's Muslim, I'm guessing by his name, and that's the crucial thing about the series that I've made. Now, go on.
OK, thank you very much. Well, there we go. Hello, Waleed. No, I mean, exactly, that's the point. The point of comedy is it's a great unifying force. You have a funny clip there involving Jews and Muslims, and it's able to highlight issues. That seems to be something the BBC doesn't do, or doesn't do now, anyway.
I think they have resolutely decided not to do it, and that's why tonight I'm going out on a slight limb and calling for the Director General of the BBC to resign. And that is because I offered him this series, Hapless, offered it to his commissioning comedy editor, who's, I guess, one of the 5 people that Britain relies on to produce its comedy. And I offered it to him and he refused. And then we made it, and we knew it was going to get 5-star reviews from the Daily Mail, from the Sun, from the Express, from the Telegraph, and from the Times. Actually, not the Telegraph. Anyway. And so I wrote to Tim Davie, who's the DG of the BBC, and I said, look, I'm so desperate to get this on the BBC because I want it to go not just to the GBNews people, not just to the Telegraph readers, but to the Guardian readers, to the Mail readers, and across the country. And that's why I made this comedy series. And I offered it to him for £6,000 an episode, which is 1/100th of the amount of money that it would cost the BBC to make it. And I did that because it seems to me to be important to have satire in our country. I've watched with great misery as riots have taken place in this country, and satire that took the mick out of the powerful people would have helped. And the BBC, and he in particular, Tim Davie, refused to buy it at £6,000 an episode. And for that reason alone, not because I think the BBC is anti-Semitic or Islamophobic or any of those things, for that reason alone, because they are killing comedy and he refused to take it, I think he should go.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is... anybody can see, as we saw from the National Audit Office, and they're basically saying that they haven't made any hit shows, and of the shows that they have made, not one of them is a comedy. So there's obviously a failing. Now, to be fair to the BBC, just because you've made something, and even though it has been critically acclaimed, doesn't mean that they have to show it. There's no,
of course,
you know, but
of course.
There is still an argument, taking even Hapless away from that, or you out of it, that the BBC have failed when it comes to comedy, and comedy has been this unifying force, and yet they haven't done their job. So we are forced to pay money into the licence fee.
Right.
They are not representing us.
So you're exactly right that they have failed, and but I have to come back to my personal experience, which counts and it matters, because when we pay for an NHS hospital, right, and it costs a certain number of millions of pounds, and it gets built and it's made with our money, and it's built and it does the job. I have offered them a sitcom which was top-notch, right? Which was as good, if not far better, get far better reviews, and better with the general public than the shows that they produce. And they have rejected it, despite the fact it's at the quality that they... So it's not a creative thing. This is not a creative decision. This is a commercial decision made by Tim Davie that he refused to do it. And the question we have to ask is, why has he refused to show satire on the BBC? And that's the big question we have to find. And not only that, actually, as it happens, the BBC, from their news point of view, didn't mention this show. No, there's been no mention of it on the BBC News, no mention of it whatsoever. So I think it's a very specific thing to try and avoid talking about this series, which takes the mick out of all religions and all powerful people, and they're trying to stop it.
Well, what I would say is people should watch it. Where can they watch it? Where can they make their own decision that it should be on the BBC? Where can they watch it right now?
So they can watch it on Prime in the UK, on Peacock in the USA, and am I not allowed to talk about David Baddiel's anti-Semitism?
No, that's not.
No, you're sure?
Okay, all right. We have a report. The BBC have done a response. We're going to read it in the next hour. Obviously, to be fair. But in the meantime, we're going to be going to a break. But join us afterwards, and we will see.
I would love to know that response.
Well, then don't stick around.
Okay.
Do stick around. Eric, Gary, Senior.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. We will say the response, I imagine, is...
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Storm Bert just slowly starting to edge away, so we've still got an evening of strong winds across the UK, further rain in places too, and it remains blustery on Monday as well. And we can see Bert there just anchored to the north of the UK, slowly pushing its way eastward, so staying windy for the next 24 hours or so, but it does eventually calm down. We do have heavy rain across parts of England and Wales pushing its way southeastwards, blustery showers following, strong winds across Northern Ireland, Scotland, 60, 70 miles an hour possible, so there could be some disruption over the coming night as well. Temperatures under clearer spells dipping into single figures, so a fresher start to Monday for many. Early rain across the southeast starting to clear, but it's an unsettled start across parts of Scotland first thing. Outbreaks of heavy rain in places, strong winds as well, gusts of 40, 50 miles an hour, but only slowly pushes away. Northern Ireland also seeing frequent heavy showers, something a little drier and brighter for northern England, parts of Wales, the Midlands, but blustery showers pushing in from the west, rain soon clearing southeast England, but remaining quite cloudy here with some patchy, showery rain in places. And through the day, it's a day of sunny spells and showers for many, though showers frequent across the north of the UK, particularly Scotland, where we'll see some longer spells of rain, the rain turning to snow over the higher ground as some colder air moves in here too. So an unsettled, blustery day to come for many. Temperatures are lower compared to Sunday, generally 7 to 11 Celsius. So actually around average for the time of year. For Tuesday morning, the risk of some showers after an early frost in places, and generally a drier, brighter day with lighter winds for many, but still windy across northeast Scotland into the afternoon. Perhaps some rain approaching the far southwest later on in the day. Temperatures near average, feeling a little cooler towards the middle of the week, and generally remaining a little unsettled.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion. For your chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean, and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. when he moved to the UK, realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with 3 goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programs. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, you know, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, but let's take a news update first from Katie Bowen.
Josh, thank you. A very good evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has said that he has spoken to Welsh First Minister Eluned Morgan about flooding in Wales, as 4 people have now died as a result of the weather brought to the UK by Storm Bert. Eluned Morgan has said that it's been a really difficult weekend, describing the impact as absolutely devastating. The storm has brought more than 80% of November's average monthly rainfall in less than 48 hours, with more than 100 flood alerts in place across the UK. A major incident has been declared in South Wales, where between 200 and 300 properties have been affected by today's flooding, and a bridge, which was replaced after Storm Dennis, has been completely washed away. Large parts of the Midlands are also under floodwater after the Kaya Brook in Tenbury Wells rose and caused a wall to collapse, flooding the Worcestershire town. Yellow warnings for wind and rain are in place for western parts of Scotland and Wales, South East England and Northern Ireland. Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall says NATO countries are involved in a hidden cyber war with Russia. That's as the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster will warn that Russia could turn the lights off and won't think twice about exploiting defence gaps in the UK. Pat McFadden is expected to give the warning to NATO members next week. In a speech, he'll urge countries to bolster cybersecurity and not underestimate the threat of cyber warfare from Russia. It follows warnings from experts last night who urged Britain to remain firm and stand strong against Vladimir Putin's threats. Shadow Levelling Up Secretary Kevin Hollinrake told GB News Labour need to increase the UK's defence spending now.
One of the highest spenders in NATO, constantly have been, but we recognise there are growing threats around the world, and that's why we committed to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2030. And that is a commitment not matched by the Labour government. They've made some kind of general commitment to get there at some point in the future, but the threat is now, and we should bolster our defences now. We made that firm commitment. Labour should do the same.
Elsewhere, the Justice Secretary says the state should never offer death as a service. Shabana Mahmood made the comments in a strongly worded intervention over the assisted dying bill ahead of a historic Commons vote this week. In a letter to constituents, Ms Mahmood said she was profoundly concerned by the legislation, not just for religious reasons, but because it could create a slippery slope towards death on demand. A group of faith leaders have signed a letter opposing the bill ahead of its debate by MPs. And Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has declined to say whether he will back the bill, arguing that he doesn't want to pressure MPs. And just briefly, musical blockbuster Wicked has surpassed Gladiator 2 and Paddington in Peru to secure the biggest opening weekend of 2024 for Vue Cinemas. The cinema chain said the film, which stars Oscar-nominated actress Cynthia Erivo and Grammy-winning pop star Ariana Grande, has had the largest opening weekend for a stage musical adaptation in its history. The 2-part film, which was released in the UK on Friday, is up 60% on Les Miserables' opening weekend in 2012 and 3 times larger than the 2022 film adaptation of Matilda. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for Free Speech Nation.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone,
Sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, just before we get on with the rest of the show, here is the BBC's response to the last item we did about their failure to put hapless on their iPlayer. A spokesman for BBC Studio said, as demand has changed, we have pursued a strategy that allows us to flex between owned IP and producing platform-defining shows, finding the route that creates most value. In this period, we brought Bluey, the most streamed show in the US, to new audiences and evolved existing hits like Doctor Who and Strictly Come Dancing, maintaining their must-see status for today's audiences. We'll continue to showcase Creative UK and bring new titles to international audiences. Well, that's a lot of bump, isn't it? OK, fair enough. All I'll say to you is check out Hapless on Amazon Prime, but obviously not when GB News is on air. OK, we're going to get more questions now from our wonderful audience. The first question's from Luke.
Good evening, guys. I don't believe that men can breastfeed. Does this make me a bigot or a Nazi?
It's both, yes.
Thank you.
Nazi bigot is the thing. So, yeah, a trustee for a breastfeeding charity has quit after the charity introduced an inclusivity policy allowing trans women to attend their support groups. Miriam Main quit the charity Lelesh League. In her resignation note, she spoke of bullying, lies and cruelty of recent times. She expressed that this had been very hard for her to endure, as she was labelled a bigot and a Nazi for saying males should not attend breastfeeding sessions. Now, Paul, this is just ridiculous.
That's bizarro world once again, isn't it? And I always say with instances like this, I want to see the lactation. I want to see the guy lactate. I want to see the milk from his udders.
I do not
I want him to feed me. Feed me the milk. And then we'll put the argument to bed. The fact he's unable to do that, I'm afraid, means that he can't. And do you know what? These are women-only spaces. If there are, people often say, "Can you define women-only spaces?" Yeah, OK. Yeah, antenatal classes or breastfeeding classes. The only things that women can do. They are women-only spaces. At least allow them that space.
What, and many more spaces?
Of course, yeah, of course.
I mean, Lewis, I know that, you know, you're into the lactating scene.
I think if the Leche League wants to let men come in, they should let men come in. It's a private organization. We shouldn't be giving them any money if the money is coming from the state. They shouldn't get it. But if they want it, and there should be a sign that says we have all different kinds of women come
lactators,
in.
Yeah. So you're a free lactator absolutist.
Yeah. You know, if you're a woman and you know that there might be a dude there.
That's a big if, by the way.
What?
If you're a woman.
If you're a woman.
I'm just saying that some people who might be claiming they're women.
You know what? Easy on the jokes, Josh.
You can't win, can you?
Oh my God! And you know what he does? He complains that I can't come up with an answer. How can you come up with an answer with a guy like doing jokes in your ear? Is that this? You know, it's true. This is not really a comedy show, Josh.
Do you have an answer?
At least not when I'm on. Do I have an answer? Yeah, I got an answer. Let people do what they want to do. If she wants to quit from being in this group because this group has made a decision to let dudes come in and pretend like they're lactating, that's her business. But you can't get the state involved. We're not going to call up the Free Speech Society and say we got to force this organization to do what we want.
Well, I guess the question is that, you know, like you say then, I guess is to say this is an organisation that allows biological men into it.
Yeah.
And,
is that against the law?
No, it's not against the law. And then women who care about this issue will have to set up a rival organisation just for biological women.
Yes, that's called freedom.
OK, fair enough.
It's called America.
Well, that's what this woman's having to do then.
That's what it should be. I think.
Cool. Well, we're not in America, but that's good.
But whatever, we should have a freedom of choice. If the organisation isn't giving you what you want.
If you want to see men in your lactating room, then go to
go somewhere else. Set up your own.
All right, there we go. Good. OK, there we go. Someone clapping at the back there. They want to see some lactating. OK.
I think that was a very good point.
No, it is a good point, Lewis. Well done. Our next question is from Yvonne.
Guten Abend.
Ah.
Should women be lectured on
allowing men into women's changing rooms.
Yes, so an astonishing interview on Women's Hour with a Darlington nurse revealed she is currently fighting for the right not to have to undress in front of a man at work. Let's have a listen.
And the person you are referring to would use she, her pronouns, as far as we know, but you don't agree to using that?
I don't agree to using that, no.
And why?
Because they're male, they are acting like a male, they have all their male parts in place, and I believe that sex is it's a biological fact, it's not interchangeable.
There's kind of two parts to that in a way, Bethany. If the person dressed more traditionally as a female, for example, would that make a difference?
Not necessarily, no.
That's the BBC fee there, going to ask those ridiculous questions. I'm going to ask you, because this actually ties into our last story and an interesting point that Lewis did make here. There was a choice there. Now, this is someone at work. They don't have a choice, right?
Yeah, that's it. That seemed journalistically to hold some integrity up until the point she asked about the dressing situation.
Yeah.
Dame Edna Everage, dressed as a woman, but I wouldn't want to undress in front of her. Well, I might do, but it's got ludicrous now. I think the BBC. I think this really does degrade Women's Hour. By the way, I will say that. I really feel strongly about that. Women's Hour will not care what I think whatsoever, but they should absolutely hold a certain level of integrity towards women, and I don't think they do in that particular instance. And the reason they don't is exactly what you said, Josh. This lady is at work being asked to essentially undress in front of a biological man. That is something that up until maybe 5 years ago would have been seen as abhorrent, perhaps even some sort of sexual discrimination. Whereas now it's a legitimate question that can be asked on Women's Hour, and I think we're all starting to lose touch with reality in some way. Now I really look forward to seeing what Lewis has to say about this, because he is going to say this is totally normal, and he wants to watch it live on telly.
There we go. Right, Lewis.
Yeah, it's the same problem, but it isn't the same problem. If it's an organization and you've gotten a job at an organization and they decide to let men come in and use the dressing rooms, then I think that's a problem, because there's some sort of contract that basically you're being...
It's not a private enterprise, it's the NHS, isn't it?
Was it the NHS?
Yeah,
well, they're all considered private enterprises, the NHS.
Well, it's not a private enterprise.
They're considered, I think the NHS is considered a trustee. They're not under direct control by the government of this. Anyway, stop interrupting me. Is that it depends on the contractual obligation of a business or an organization, and then people can decide this is just the way it is. I think women should be more afraid of women undressing in front of them. I think there are more creepy women out there than there are men.
Let's not talk about your girlfriend at the moment, Lewis. No, the fact is that there are lots of women who feel uncomfortable, rightly so, for them, and in this woman in this interview, who feels very uncomfortable, doesn't want to be forced, essentially, at her work to undress in front of a biological male, as she said, an intact male, and she is having that right taken away from her.
And you want the state to come into every single person's workplace and say, you know what, I don't want you to have, we need to have...
I want the state to protect women. Yes,
well, you
that's
asked
exactly
my opinion.
I want.
I'm against it. I'm against the state being involved in people's lives.
So who do you think should be involved? Who do you think should be stopped? Do you think that the notion of a woman being forced to undress in front of a male is wrong?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
so who would stop it then?
They're not forcing anybody.
They are. They're forcing
Here is the point. The point is there is forcing, and that is a contractual breach of some kind. It's a tort. You can take that person to court.
No,
how can you unit that? Is that if...
Yeah, thank you.
How is that
we'll let you attack him later. Just do it in the toilet when he tries undressing.
No. No. As I said, women are more dangerous than the men.
Yeah, I think you're pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Peter.
Yes, hi. Good evening.
Hey, Peter.
On a slightly more serious note.
Yeah.
More serious than that.
OK, so a very recent petition on gov.org, gov.uk, concerns the next general election, whether it should be sooner rather than later.
Yes, so...
Does the panel believe it's time for an election already, even though Labour has already done so many things that many people are complaining about.
This is an interesting thing. So a petition demanding an immediate general election has surpassed 1 million signatures amid mounting anger at Labour's budget tax rate. The petition, posted by a pub owner, complains that Keir Starmer has gone back on promises. Senior Tories hailed the huge numbers as an expression of anger that Labour have lied. Peter, what do you think about this?
Well, as a small business owner, I'm completely in agreement. What they're doing is going to kill small businesses, and it has to change sooner rather than later.
So you think there should be another general election?
Absolutely.
Now, Peter, people don't know this, but Peter's actually my first ever boss. When I was 16 years old, I worked in your small business.
That's true.
And I stole a few beers.
Yeah, that'd be about £500 now.
Sorry about that, Peter. I didn't really admit that live on air, but thank you. Yes, this is interesting because people would say about you, you're familiar with this story, right? What people would also say is that actually, people who supported Brexit, for example, and the people who are against Brexit said, oh, no, we shouldn't. There's hypocrisy there in that was democracy. And the people who said, no, we want to have to redo it, that we've just had a general election. That was the democracy.
It's not democracy because we have a representative form of government, so it's not democracy. Democracy would be like, we'd say 50...
Well, we have the closest to a democracy.
Whatever.
That's our democratic system.
OK. The truth is that if you want to... You should have worried about that when you set up the system you have here. You have the system. This is the system. The guy gets elected, and you have and unless this... MPs vote to have an election, you don't have an election. You've got no control. I think people are ridiculous in this country. It's so...
Yeah, well, no, thank you. I actually tuned out most of what you said. Paul, what do you think? Is this being slightly hypocritical here?
OK, there's a couple of things here. Much like Peter, I'm a small business owner, and thanks to Labour, that's what I'll remain for at least 4 years. That's not going to get any bigger, and it is going to hold me back. However... This is a million signatories to this petition, and yes, it will probably get spoken about in Parliament. No, I don't believe that it should force a general election. Now, Labour are emboldened by a huge, essentially 10 million majority, 10 million votes for Labour, OK? I didn't vote for Labour, but that is our system. We probably shouldn't rely on petitions to force that through. And I think at the end of the day, Keir Starmer will probably make it a non-crime hate incident anyway, and we'll all have to forget about it. But we do need to maintain our integrity of the democracy that we've got. And to contradict slightly what Lewis said, it's probably one of the greatest and most original democracies in the modern world.
Democracy. It's a
we do need to maintain the integrity of that. I'm not sure a petition should change that. Now, if there was 50 million signatories on there, it'd be a different matter.
A petition cannot... This is a ridiculous conversation because the way it's... The Constitution, which is no Constitution in this country, the way the rules are here is you could have 60 million people saying we want this resolved, and the Labour government will still go ahead.
But then what we do is we vote in the government that we want. That's the democracy that we have.
But no, there would be no election. In 4 years, there would be the election.
Yeah, well, there will be in 4 years. Let's see if we're still around.
This is not going to force an election. You should just get used to it. You voted for Labour. We had
you know what? We're going to move on, but I will say that at the very least, this should hopefully show Labour that people are unhappy, and that's not a bad thing for a government to understand how its citizens feel. It's not a bad thing, but you cannot force them to have a new vote. Well, then we're in agreement, I think. Brilliant. Yeah. OK, our final questions from Annika.
Yeah, right. Should the police really be recruiting from the army?
Yes, so this is because a recent video shared on X shows a desperate struggle as police attempt to detain and arrest suspected criminals. Let's take a quick look.
God. Wait, relax.
So, Lewis, that reminds me of what happened after the headliners last night. You were on. Yeah.
She's a bit prettier than you.
But I did pull you off. Yeah. So, what do you think about that? That is not my idea of the police. They're flailing about on the floor. They're weaker than the people that they're trying to arrest. This is not good. And as the person asking a question said, should we get the police used to recruit from the army, and that has stopped over the last 2 decades.
Well,
this is a result of that.
This is what happens when you take people's guns away from them. That means the police can't have guns. That means those people can't be shot. You know, if somebody this is what British people. Maybe in this country you didn't think British people needed to be shot. Maybe they used to be lovely before I arrived 25 years ago. They used to be lovely. You don't have to worry about it. But if the police had guns, you could have women policemen. But if they don't have guns and you're asking a woman like those two women to jump on top of guys, you're going to have problems.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's actually also, if you look at the fuller clip, there are men there as well, unable to cope very quickly. What do you think when you see that clip?
I'm really conflicted, actually. I mean, I'm not quite sure what we expect from this situation any longer. Had there been some big burly guys beating the living daylights out of them on the floor, we'd all have a different issue. We're just debating something else. We should have a strong police force. They should be able to. Physically detain. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Next on Free Speech Nation, author J.K. Rowling weighs in on a long-standing row that is set to come to a head in the UK Supreme Court next week. How do we define a woman? We'll hear what she had to say after this break.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Phil Kearsey is bringing a new flavour to the Michelin-starred restaurant Pied à Terre as he becomes its new executive head chef. Customers can expect a menu that showcases modern British cooking accompanied by classical French roots, which uses hyper-seasonal ingredients. What are hyper-seasonal ingredients? That's an interesting phrase.
It's more about just reacting to the seasonality of everything. We like to change the menu all the time. So basically, I surround myself with the best suppliers, and they tell me what's amazing at the moment, and then we try and celebrate that in the restaurant in many different forms, using taste, texture, and technique, and just try and celebrate something as humble as a broccoli stem or a cauliflower, using absolutely everything, and making sure we've got an ever-changing menu. So letting the seasons dictate, so it's never boring and we never get menu fatigue.
OK, your career has taken you around the world a bit.
Yeah.
For example, you were in the United States. What did you learn there?
So, every chef I've worked for, it's about to take something from. A lot of chefs will go places and just stay in one establishment and get to the top, and then that's it. I've kind of then went to another chef to learn completely different things. That's the brilliant thing, to be able to surround myself with such amazing chefs throughout my career, because I've learned different things from all of them. And you find out 5 different ways to do something, and you find the way that you like it the best. And it's also about understanding it takes a while to understand how the restaurant is, going through the history of all these amazing chefs that have been before me, the style, because it needs to make sense. You wouldn't have a dish that should be at the Fat Duck and then a dish that should be at the Waterside, you know. You need to make sure that it all makes sense and it goes together with the decor, the service, the wine serving. And so we want to be the restaurant, not that does a little bit of everything, we want to be the best French restaurant in London, you know.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Next Tuesday, the UK Supreme Court will consider the question, is a person with a gender recognition certificate a woman. Author J.K. Rowling has weighed into the debate, saying that on a post on X that whatever the outcome of the case, it won't change what a woman is. But is the court deciding whether to remove rights from women and girls? For more on this, I am joined now by criminal defence lawyer Paul Britton. Paul. Thank you. Welcome, welcome. So, this seems like a very important case.
It is an important case, particularly because of the ramifications that it can have for women. I mean, your intro there was about what is a woman, and obviously you can't tamper with what a woman is at the biological level, but in terms of the legal definition of what a woman is, of course, that can be left open to interpretation. The Equalities Act is particularly unhelpful in defining what a woman is. At Section 212, it says a woman is a female of any age. So it's almost just like using another word to describe what a female is. So the court is now going to be asked or invited to interpret what that definition is in a more robust, specific sense, so that we all know, at least at the legal level, what the interpretation of a woman is.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a long time coming. This has been kind of thought at different levels through organisations, thought online. And we've had, up to now, the most is that you're allowed to at least believe that a woman is an adult human female, that belief is protected. But
belief is protected, that's
that
right.
belief is protected. Now, that case was fought and won by Mayor Forstater. This is taking things to the next level. And would this have been moot anyway because the Conservative government were trying to actually codify what a woman is for the Equality Act? That was one of the things they were talking about, wasn't it?
I mean, this stems from Scotland, really, and it's the UK Supreme Court that's been asked to look at it. Again, it's not the first time, I should say, that the definition of a woman has come before the courts in this country. In 1970, before the Matrimonial Causes Act, and certainly before the Equalities Act, a gentleman married a woman. She was born a man. He married her knowing that. 3 years into the marriage, they decided to divorce. She issued proceedings for maintenance pending suit. His lawyers responded and said, well, no, she's not a woman, she's a man, and therefore legally we're not married. And the court said that no, absolutely, she is a man, and they annulled the marriage. So it's not the first time we've had this situation, but you say it's been a long time coming. It's really been coming since 2010, when the Equalities Act. And I have to say, rightly, when statute makers write law, they often leave it to the judiciary to interpret what these words mean, in this case, what a woman is. They do that because social moods change, and the definitions should evolve with what the public, at any one time, want that word to mean.
The issue, I guess, is that it isn't necessarily what the public want that word to mean. It seems to be a small number of activists have very hardly pushed and have arguably gone into into different organisations to push their interpretation of what a woman is, which is essentially a biological male with this certificate. Even without it, people self-declaring. If it's enough now to say, I am a woman, whatever your physical appearance or not, if I feel like it, that's enough.
Yes, well, I mean, this has been pushed into the spotlight, particularly because individuals who were born men become women, and then they want to use the female toilets, or they want to be on a women's only ward, or they want to go to refuge centres where women are subject to domestic violence by men. Now, those women who are biologically a woman don't want men in that facility because, rightly, they have now got a fear against men, and just because you identify as something else doesn't automatically make you that sex. So that is why it's been pushed into the spotlight.
So this is this is obviously being argued at the moment in the courts. What are the ramifications either way, depending on the outcome, then?
Well, they are massive. I mean, in a place like this, I mean, actually, GBNews is quite fortunate because you have unisex toilets. A lot of places don't have that, so they will have to rethink how their toilet setup is going to be. Refuge centres will not be able to refuse services to someone just because they were born a man and now they identify as a woman. If the law says, because you identify as a woman, you are that, then you'll have to offer them those services. Female-only wards will be impacted as well. You know, further than that, for us as criminal defence lawyers, criminal statistics, let's look at the prison population. There's roughly 90,000 inmates at the moment in this country. Only 3,000 of them are women. Now, if a section of men start identifying as women, it's going to start interfering with who commits crime in this country and how we're going to deal with it. We've also got female-only prisons. Are we going to start letting individuals who were born men, I'm very careful with my language, individuals who were born men...
We have let them in. So we've let, you know, we had male rapists let into prison and...
Well, I mean, this is a prime example, and that's one of the reasons it's actually in the spotlight. You know, you have someone who's born a man, rapes women, then he becomes a woman, gets arrested and ends up in a female prison amongst women who are actually now probably going to be at risk by her would be the correct pronoun because they now identify as a woman, but actually biologically are him.
And will this case be pushed further? Is it? I mean, it's the Supreme Court. Where does it go after this?
Well, it's hard to say. I should imagine what will happen is we'll have a reserved judgment. So once all the evidence is heard, the law lords will retire and they will analyse and discuss again everything that they've heard, and then we'll have a very public judgment.
Wow, well, I'm looking forward to finding out what a woman is. Finally, Paul Britton, thank you so much for joining us. And I do want to say, Paul, that we are actually getting single-sex toilets being put into GB News. I'm not taking it personally, but it did happen after an incident that I had in it. OK, anyway, next on... I'd had curry. Let's not talk about it. Anyway, next on Free Speech Nation, we are joined by historian David Oldroyd-Bolt, who gives us a verdict on a new book detailing King Charles' first year on the throne. That's to come after these messages.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Storm Bert just slowly starting to edge away, so we've still got an evening of strong winds across the UK, further rain in places too, and it remains blustery on Monday as well. And we can see Bert there just anchored to the north of the UK, slowly pushing its way eastward, so staying windy for the next 24 hours or so, but it does eventually calm down. We do have heavy rain across parts of England and Wales pushing its way southeastwards, blustery showers following, strong winds across Northern Ireland, Scotland, 60, 70 miles an hour possible, so there could be some disruption over the coming night as well. Temperatures under clearer spells dipping into single figures, so a fresher start to Monday for many. Early rain across the southeast starting to clear, but it's an unsettled start across parts of Scotland first thing. Outbreaks of heavy rain in places, strong winds as well, gusts of 40, 50 miles an hour, but only slowly pushes away. Northern Ireland also seeing frequent heavy showers, something a little drier and brighter for northern England, parts of Wales, the Midlands, but blustery showers pushing in from the west. Rain soon clearing southeast England, but remaining quite cloudy here with some patchy, showery rain in places. And through the day, it's a day of sunny spells and showers for many, though showers frequent across the north of the UK, particularly Scotland, where we'll see some longer spells of rain, the rain turning to snow over the higher ground as some colder air moves in here too. So an unsettled, blustery day to come for many. Temperatures lower compared to Sunday, generally 7 to 11 Celsius, so actually around average for the time of year. For Tuesday morning, the risk of some showers after an early frost in places, and generally a drier, brighter day with lighter winds for many, but still windy across northeast Scotland into the afternoon. Perhaps some rain approaching the far southwest later on in the day. Temperatures near average, feeling a little cooler towards the middle of the week, and generally remaining a little unsettled.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. King Charles reached the milestone of 1 year on the throne back in May, and royal writer and broadcaster Robert Hardman has written an account of his reign so far. To hear more about this book, joining me now is historian and fellow of Danube Institute, David Oldroyd-Bolt. David, welcome. So, have you read this book?
I have.
OK.
I think for anyone who's interested in the king, anyone who's interested in how monarchy works in the 21st century, anyone who's interested in who forms the court, it's absolutely vital reading. It's also, I think, the most perspicacious and the most interesting book on the king since Jonathan Dimbleby's biography of 1994 of the then Prince of Wales.
Do you have to know what perspicacious is to understand this book?
No, the good thing is books called dictionaries exist alongside this book, so you can do
Oh,
both.
OK, very good. OK, that's very good.
Robert Hardman, I think, is the most well-informed royal commentator in this country. He's spent 20 years on the beat. He was intimately associated with the court of the late Queen Elizabeth. He wrote exceptional biographies of her, of the late Duke of Edinburgh, wonderful book on the working of the monarchy in the Commonwealth, which is an extremely good historical study as well as being good popular journalism, and has been observing the king since he was a Prince of Wales for many, many years. So I don't think there are many other royal commentators, royal journalists who have got the degree of knowledge he does and also who know who the people within are. This is a really good thing about this book, is it tells you exactly who is who and who does what to make the monarchy work on a daily basis. Because it can all seem, I suppose, like king gets up in the morning, valet puts the toothpaste on the toothbrush, has his egg, and then gets in a nice suit and off he goes. There are dozens of people working with him to ensure that his schedule is as seamless as possible, to make sure that he has the balance of engagements he needs to, so that no body or part of the nation feels left out compared with another. And on that basis, I think Bob has done an amazing job. It's also, as you would expect of a writer of such long and senior experience, extremely well written. It bolts along, so even though it's 500 pages, he'll get through it in a couple of days easily.
But it is accessible to more populist audience in terms of people who might like The Crown?
Yeah, exactly. This is not a work of deep academic history. I don't think Hardman would for a moment say that that was its intention. This is a work of very good popular history and journalism, so that the king's subjects, as we all still are, we are not citizens, whatever Republicans might want us to be, know how it is he works, what it is that gets him out of bed in the morning, quite literally, and what's the last thing he thinks about before going to bed at night.
Is there anything that we learn for the first time? For example, obviously it sounds like there's a lot of interesting detail here, but is there any larger revelations?
Not particularly, because I think all those came out many years ago about what the king likes and dislikes. He was very straightforward about this as Prince of Wales. I think the value of this book, as I say, is that it really gives one an insight into the man, why he believes, as his mother did, in the duty of monarchy above all else. And I'm sure that if most of us were to find ourselves at the age of 74 plunged into a job of such enormous responsibility for the first time, it would weigh on our minds, never mind if we were also looking after, as head of state, 14 other countries.
Yeah, but what about this idea that, I mean, he's been preparing a lifetime for it. Do you get the sense that this is what he wanted?
Well,
that you know, you be careful what you wish for, or...
You can prepare a lifetime to run 100 metres at the Olympics and you can still fall over as soon as you get out of the starting blocks. And I think the thing about His Majesty's reign so far is that not only has he not fallen over, he's got out of the starting blocks with great pace. I'm not aware of any major mistake he's made yet. Okay. That's not to say that he won't, but I'm not aware he has yet, so his preparation has clearly been in good stead.
So this is year one. I'm assuming there's going to be a book every year.
Well, we'll see.
OK, that was a joke, by the way. There's also been a story about cutting middle-class references from schools.
Yes.
This is an incredible story.
Well, I mean, who knew such a thing existed? The Professor of Social Mobility at Exeter University, a man called Lee Elliott Major, has criticised the way that schools function, essentially. What he said is that instead of pupils being taken to museums and art galleries and exhibitions and concerts and being shown, let's say, the best side of the human race and all its achievements, they should go to local football stadiums and see how the groundskeepers work. They should go to grime concerts instead of brass band concerts because it's more accessible. Now, quick show of hands in the audience. Who thinks that this is absolutely patronising rubbish? Because I'm absolutely fed up, on behalf of the children of this nation, of academics saying this can't be approached. This is inaccessible except to the middle class and the privately educated. As far as I'm concerned, the best this country ever was when we had one ideal of education, to teach the best that has ever been thought and said. And our decline as a nation since is directly mapped on to concerns of accessibility and relevance to the workplace.
Yeah. So, I mean, and also there's an argument that this is the opposite of its impact, to not show people aspirant culture.
Yeah, precisely so. It's what Michael Gove called, when he was Education Secretary, the soft bigotry of low expectations, as though children from poor backgrounds, and he wants to change the way that children are described. They should now be described as under-resourced, which I think is both dehumanising and, frankly, bad English. Children understand what poor means. If you say to a child, are you under-resourced? He'll say, well, what the hell do you mean by this? This is lunacy. Only an academic could come up with it. It is deeply patronising. There is no reason why anyone from any background shouldn't be able to go and see a play and take something from it. Shouldn't be able to go into the British Museum and look at any exhibition from prehistory until the modern day and learn something about the condition of the human race.
And I mean, how far has this been pushed? Has this been actually recommended?
Yes.
So will this be implemented?
Yes, Professor Major is a part of...
It sounds very posh, by the way.
Lee Elliott Major.
Right.
Well,
yeah.
he just
ironically so.
Tremendously so.
Yeah.
And I'm sure being at Exeter, he probably is. Being part of the Government Commission on the changes to the curriculum, there is every chance that he'll be listened to, and it will be to the great detriment of our children. He's also managed somehow to ring in the Royal Society for Chemistry, for Biology and for Physics, who say that currently the curriculum is overburdened, which I think is teachers' way of saying they don't like teaching as much.
Yeah, actual facts. Well, David Oldroyd, thank you very much for joining us. Wow. Next on Free Speech Nation, it's social sensations, and our expert panel will answer your unfiltered dilemmas. See you in a bit.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people might have thought that they'd be seeing at this point, because you were both on the show, but you didn't fall in love in the pods, did you?
No, we didn't. I rejected him.
You guys look great together.
Yeah.
Very happy as well. It seemed like you guys were really strong, and it almost seemed like Freddie, after he admitted to you that he'd cheated in the past...
I actually respected the fact that he told me up front. I didn't even want to have that conversation, obviously. That was a conversation that we got told to talk about. And I respected his decision, but I think he felt that I was holding this grudge towards him that she really doesn't like, and which was not, and he knew this, because off camera we had many conversations where I was like, thank you for owning up, like, we can just move on from this. But if anything, I think he just felt guilty the whole entire time, and he put that on me, which is fine, but yeah, there's obviously a lot that people don't see.
So for viewers who don't know, Love is Blind is where you go and seek love and romance, but you don't see who you're speaking to, right?
No.
So, Jake, why did you go on the show?
My parents actually met in a very similar way. So my stepdad was texting my mum. He'd basically stolen the number off of a friend because the friend had met my mum in Blackpool, and they were texting for like 6 months. They'd never met. So that premise of how they got together and the marriage that they had was stunning. And to build a relationship not based on looks before you met, I just found that just incredible.
So do you believe in that concept? Is it lust or love at first sight?
It's weird.
It's a bit of both.
I think, it's definitely a bit of both. And I always say, as you get older, your looks will change, but your personality will stay the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. It's time for Social Sensations, the perspicacious part of the show where we look at what has been going viral this week on social media. First up, the stars of new film Wicked are told their lyrics are holding space in queer media. Not sure what that means, even though I'm very perspicacious. Perspicacious!
Seen this week, people are taking the lyrics of Defying Gravity and really holding space with that and feeling power in that.
I didn't know that was happening.
I've seen it, yeah.
That's really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I didn't know that was happening.
I've seen it on a couple posts. I don't know how widespread, but, you know, I am in queer media, so that's my,
That's really
cool. Yeah.
Paul, I may not know what perspicacious means, or even how to say it, but they don't seem it.
No, they don't. That's what happens when you legalise drugs. I didn't understand. I've watched that clip. Normally I like to see these as a surprise, but I had to watch that about 3 or 4 times before we came on air.
I've watched it about 100 times.
And I don't know what they're doing. She seems to be acting sort of some sort of faux surprise about the fact that the lyrics that she's singing are being held.
Yeah.
I didn't understand any of it.
I'll tell you what, let's go to Lewis, because Lewis, when people come up to you and say, oh my God, I'm a big fan of yours, I've seen you react exactly that way. Oh my God, thank you so much. You hold what I say.
Because I'm a human being, Josh. and I appreciate the audience. Yeah, you want to know what that means? That's what Ariana Grande is doing, because she's reaching out to people. That's what you should learn.
That means I want to touch your penis.
You know what, Josh? That's not going to make up for how badly I've been treated by you. Is this play musical is vaguely gay? From what I've heard, I haven't seen it, but it's not the complaint that when it came out in about 20 years ago that it wasn't gay enough. It wasn't like a really gay thing, and now it's been they're trying to make it gay because there's a lot more gay people than there are like other people.
That's a really good take.
That's what this is. That's what this is. What do you want to know? I'll tell you what you want to know.
I want to know: are they mental?
Of course they're mental, because they're. I'm not going to say why they're mental, but you can use your imagination why I think they're mental. The woman who is like going like this is about as unattractive. That's like completely.
Well, also the thing is, I mean, the song was written 20 years ago. It's not even her song. No. I love the end of it where she says, where the woman says, "Oh, first of all, like I'm from queer media, whatever that is." And although we just had some just now, but when she says, "Yeah, I know," it's like I saw it in a couple of posts. This idea that it's this worldwide movement, but really it's
I think the actress actually was slightly surprised. I don't think she understood either. I think that was her best acting in response to that question, because it made no sense. It made slightly more sense, however, than Lewis's answer just then.
I'll give you the more sense thing. She's thinking in her head, "Don't be like Rachel Zegler. Don't be like." Do you know anything about Rachel?
Snow White. Yeah.
Snow White. Do not destroy this film. Do not destroy my career.
But it's been a massive hit so far, so I guess that she did the job. Right, next up, the leader of the Liberal Democrats is dancing again, this time on TikTok, challenging the Prime Minister to a game of FIFA.
Bring the boom strong, bring the boom and no fear, bring the boom was the song of the summer this year.
Put him on the boom meter, we're gonna rate it. Put the fries in the bag now, already ate it.
Boom and doom in the restaurants, making some noise, taking the field.
This makes me want to watch Wicked.
He's getting away with it. Ed Davey is proper getting away with it, isn't he? He's not being held to account on anything. He can do that. He is getting paid 100,000 quid a year to do that. No responsibility, would openly run the country from the log flume at Thorpe Park. nobody seems to be questioning Ed Davey. Look, I'm all for fun here. I genuinely am, obviously. That's my job. But Ed Davey, there doesn't seem to be a serious note about him whatsoever at the moment.
The argument is that he needs to do these stunts to get some attention, Lewis.
Yeah, because he has no chance of being the Prime Minister. No one knows what the Lib Dems stand for. And the guy's got no future. And he's got type 2 diabetes. He's going to die within the next 2 or 3 years. If I were that fat, I wouldn't... Somebody should fat-shame the guy. It's fucking... Excuse me. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Well, he's doing some dancing. So
he's
that's a good
basically
start,
saying, "Look at me. Look at how fat I am, and I can dance." And saying, "Oh, that's so great. See, fat people can dance. Yeah, they can dance, but he's going to die."
Wow. OK, then. Well, we've just created our own viral sensation there.
Yeah.
Well done, Lewis. I mean, but again, making that point to Lewis that he went off on a slight tangent there. But, I mean, is this what the Lib Dems have to do, though? There is a purpose, there is method to his madness, right?
Well, to be fair to him, it's worked throughout, hasn't it? I mean, he doubled the size of number of seats he's got within the Houses of Parliament.
From a very low starting point.
From a very low starting point. However, he managed to do it by doing this all the way through. The problem he's going to have is if he wants to become a legitimate opposition in this country, they're just going to keep showing those videos. He's got no chance.
Right. Finally, a robot revolution. An AI robot encourages others to quit their jobs. Paul, you have a child about the same age as one of mine. You've obviously seen Wall-E.
Yes.
Is that the vibe you're getting from this? Is this
not really.
terrifying?
I do find this slightly terrifying. This is essentially what Lewis Schaefer does to the rest of the headliners. He whispers in our ear every day, and we lose our mind, and we're all going to walk out as one at one point. This is terrifying. This is the future. This is what's going to happen. You know, all the time Ed Davey's dancing around, all overweight, about to die, and Keir Starmer's freezing old people. The robots are taking over.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen this kind of evidence. Lewis, have you heard of robots before?
I've heard of robots and I've heard of China, and if you believe this is real, then you deserve to be chased out of an office or something. We don't know whether this is true. The more you know about China, the less you know how unreal.
So you're saying this is fake?
It could be fake. It could be. They could have set the robots, if they hear this voice, to follow the lead of this voice. That doesn't mean that all robots. It could mean like this, but I'm totally worried about this.
OK, maybe you should be a bit nicer to robots. Thank you, Lewis. Right now, the part where we talk you through your unfiltered dilemmas. Our first dilemma is from Sean. I am going on my first date in 22 years next weekend. Good luck. As a man, am I expected to pay the bill? Yes, that is a big one. Now, Lewis, obviously you're out on a lot of dates, but you expect people to pay for you, of course, as a gigolo.
Yeah, let him, yeah. I mean, if it's his first date in 22... First of all, you should never go out on a date with a girl. It's a complete waste of money.
Yeah.
And you set up the expectations as too high. You're saying, let's go out on a date in anticipation of us, like, having sex or something. And women hate that kind of thing. They don't want to know that you're planning this. And they're going to want more and more from you. So
it starts with Burger King and then McDonald's and all the way up the fast food chain. What do you think? 22 years has the dating?
Well, dating's obviously changed in that time.
I mean, they don't even, from my understanding, is people don't even go out to dinner anymore. That's because it's too much of a time commitment. If you don't like something.
Really?
Yeah.
What do they do?
They meet up for a drink or they meet up for a coffee. And then they see if things are going to go further.
But I guess the point still remains, though, should he pay the whole of the bill? Well, he doesn't have to, does he? Go 50-50 on the first date, surely. No. I mean, what Lewis talks about is literally the death of love.
Yeah.
The guy should be embracing this as a step into the future. He could be happy after this. Don't be like Lewis.
Well, no, he's not going to. First of all, he's not going to be happy because he's going out with a woman. So there's no happiness. The more you do, the more you hang out.
Well, you know what? May I suggest a date, maybe even a second date? Come down here. Come to the show.
Yeah, get a look at Louis Schaefer and say, I'll buy you a cup of coffee across the street.
Our second dilemma is from Derek from Yorkshire. I'm obsessed with this good-looking woman I used to work with, but she's engaged. Should I persevere? Now, this is stalking.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds like a really good idea, mate. No, of course he shouldn't. He shouldn't at all. Why would he? Well, I mean,
Lewis, why would you?
You would because this is just how people are. They're hypergamous. They want something better than what they got. They want a bigger and better deal. She's going to leave her boyfriend eventually.
How do you know that?
Because I know women. I know. I've been married. They're very dangerous people.
But not every woman is your ex-wife.
They all have the potential. They're waiting for my girlfriend. I've got a girlfriend now, but that's not going to stop me from with any of you women here. But I should mention it. But she's always looking over my shoulder for somebody else.
Yeah, someone to help pick you up off the floor.
Yes. Whatever benefits, something. She's going to think I want somebody younger than me, or somebody smarter, or somebody maybe in a position of authority like you. That's what they want. So
I look forward to seeing her at the Christmas party.
You know what? You always hear these stories of like the woman who's, then eventually women don't leave the guy as much because they get tired.
I think I'm going to cry.
That really did peter out there, didn't it? Just like all of my hopes.
That was actually when you wanted me to interrupt you for the first time.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to listen, and then...
OK, fair enough. Thank you very much, Lewis, for that insight into your life. Right, thank you for joining us for Free Speech Nation. This was a week when a woman branded a Nazi for saying men shouldn't be in a breastfeeding club, a politician was disciplined for saying Hamas are terrorists, and British history was rewritten.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. Storm Bert just slowly starting to edge away, so we've still got an evening of strong winds across the UK, further rain in places too, and it remains blustery on Monday as well. And we can see Bert there just anchored to the north of the UK, slowly pushing its way eastwards, so staying windy for the next 24 hours or so, but it does eventually calm down. We do have heavy rain across parts of England and Wales pushing its way southeastwards, blustery showers following, strong winds across Northern Ireland, Scotland, 60, 70 miles an hour possible, so there could be some disruption over the coming night as well. Temperatures under clearer spells dipping into single figures, so a fresher start to Monday for many. Early rain across the southeast starting to clear, but it's an unsettled start across parts of Scotland first thing. Outbreaks of heavy rain in places, strong winds as well, gusts of 40, 50 miles an hour, but only slowly pushes away. Northern Ireland also seeing frequent heavy showers, something a little drier and brighter for northern England, parts of Wales, the Midlands, but blustery showers pushing in from the west, rain soon clearing southeast England, but remaining quite cloudy here with some patchy, showery rain in places. And through the day, it's a day of sunny spells and showers for many, though showers frequent across the north of the UK, particularly Scotland, where we'll see some longer spells of rain, the rain turning to snow over the higher ground as some colder air moves in here too. So an unsettled, blustery day to come for many. Temperatures lower compared to Sunday, generally 7 to 11 Celsius. So actually around average for the time of year. For Tuesday morning, the risk of some showers after an early frost in places, and generally a drier, brighter day with lighter winds for many, but still windy across northeast Scotland into the afternoon. Perhaps some rain approaching the far southwest later on in the day. Temperatures near average, feeling a little cooler towards the middle of the week, and generally remaining a little unsettled.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs.
Imagine getting the call to tell you that you've won